Welcome to my channel. I'm Scott, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of valuing Paysafe stock by analyzing their financial statements and dissecting their financial ratios so we can determine if it's a buy or a sell. Let's get started with the model. This is a small cap company, 955 million market cap. They're trading at $16 a share and they have 60 million shares outstanding. Paysafe is a payments platform that serves merchants and consumers, mostly in the entertainment sectors. They do a lot of business in online sports. They were founded in 1996, headquartered in the UK. Let's look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. Really consistent free cash flow, around $100 million each year. Margins are okay. Nothing too special, between 6 and 8%. Net income is the profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. They had a really big negative in 2022 from an asset impairment. They had their first positive in 2024. They just completed their 2024 fiscal year. Their fiscal year ended 12/31. Revenue is the sales for the company, and that goes up a little bit from 1.5 billion to 1.7 billion. Really small growth. We estimated 4 years of free cash flow. We also estimated a terminal value, which is all cash flows after year 4, that's 2.1 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $1.8 billion. We divide that by 60 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price of $31. They're trading at $16, so they're trading at a 48% discount. It's a buy according to the model. There are 150 companies in the same industry as Paysafe, and if they have a number in red, they're worse than the median. If they have a number in blue, they're better. They don't spend too much on CapEx, 112 million. The average is 4 billion, median 175 million. Pretty high debt to equity ratio, 2.7. For every dollar of equity, $2.70 of debt. Of course, they don't pay a dividend. They generate 133 million of free cash flow, much lower than median average. They rank 83rd in market cap, a little under 1 billion. The average is 250 million. They have the best price to book, 1.1. Price to book is stock price over book value per share, or market cap over equity. They're trading at 43 times earnings, which is worse than the median. They have the best price to free cash flow at 7. The best price to sales at 0.6. They don't generate that much revenue, 1.7 billion, but a lot of revenue relative to their market cap, the best. And their 5-year annual revenue growth rate is pretty low at 4%. Their stock price is 16, and their 52-week low is 12. So it's not that far away from the 52-week low. So it could be a good time to get in. If you put $10,000 into this company when they started trading, just after 2-3 months, you would have been at $16,000, $17,000. But if you're still holding on, you'd be at $1,300, an 87% loss. To summarize, I have them trading at a 48% discount, ranking 4 to 10. I might buy it short term. It seems like it's getting to a low point, so 5 out of 10. Long term, I definitely would not buy it. I don't think this company will be around in 5 or 10 years. Ratios, 8 out of 10. Really good ratios. Great price to free cash flow. Financials are pretty good, 6 out of 10. They are going up each year. They recently released their full year earnings. They released it on March 4th. Let's go through the slides. For 2024, payment volume of 152 billion. That's the transaction volume, not their revenue. Their revenue is 1.7 billion. EBITDA, 450 million. Net income, 133 million. Net leverage, 4.7x. Companies define net leverage differently, but the way I think about it, it's net debt over EBITDA. Net debt is debt minus cash. They probably define it somewhere in this document. It's right here, debt and net leverage. So it is net debt over EBITDA. Net debt 2.1 billion, EBITDA 450 million, so 4.7x. That's an improvement from 5x at the end of 2023. Usually the lower the better for this ratio. Here are some highlights. They hired 170 people for their sales team. That's a 2x sales team growth. 6% SMB merchant revenue growth. SMB is small and medium-sized businesses. Their classic wallet reached 1 million users the first time they did that. Their digital wallet is up 4% in 2024. It was also up in 2023, but down in 2022. Small and medium-sized businesses, revenue growth in digital wallets is 4% in 2024. It was higher last year, 7%. Before that, it was negative. Small and medium-sized businesses up 6% this year, which is lower than the last 2 years. E-commerce up 30%, which is a little more than last year, a lot more than 2022. But e-commerce is only 10% of their business. Over 90% of their business is digital wallets and small and medium-sized businesses. Revenue $1.7 billion, similar to last year. It was $1.6 billion in 2023, $1.5 billion in 2022. EBITDA is pretty similar to the last 3 years. Their leverage is 4.7. The goal for 2025 is 4.3 to 4.4. Transaction volume on that platform, 40 billion. Last year, 36 billion. That's just for the quarter, the fourth quarter. Revenue up a little bit, 420 million. Last year, 415 million. Adjusted EBITDA is down. It was 122 million, now it's 103 million. Margins are down as well, from 29% to 25%. Take rate is down 1.2% to 1%. That's their fee. 1% of 40 billion is 420 million. That's rounded to 1%. I'm sure if you brought a decimal out, you'll see it's not exactly 1. Free cash flow is down from 90 million to 71 million. Adjusted net income is down a lot, from 41 million to 30 million. Revenue included a headwind of 11 million from their disposed businesses. Disposed means they got rid of those businesses. They sold them off or closed them down. For all of 2024, volume 152 billion. That's up from 140 billion. Revenue 1.7 billion. Take rate is the same, 1.1%. That's their fee, the percent of the volume. Adjusted EBITDA, very similar. Free cash flow is down, and adjusted net income is down. In Merchant Solutions, volume is up from 30 billion to 34 billion. That's just for the quarter. For the year, 120 to 130 billion. And revenue is pretty much flat quarter over quarter, but year over year it's up. Adjusted EBITDA is down in both time periods. Digital wallets improved year over year, 22 billion to 23 billion. Revenue is up a little bit in both time frames. Adjusted EBITDA is also up in both time frames. Committed RCFs, revolving credit facilities, 305 million. That's debt. They drew 91 million and they have 217 million of cash. So liquidity, 431 million. They do have a lot of debt, 2.4 billion. That's why the stock has gone down like 95% since the peak. Here's their guidance. 2025 revenue guidance, 1.71 to 1.73 billion. Adjusted EBITDA, about 470 million. Adjusted EPS, about 240. Here's more 2025 forecasts. Interest expense, still really high, 130 million. Depreciation and amortization, 140 million. And shares outstanding, 62 million. So let's see what their net income is. If interest alone is 130 million. So you can see their net income for 2024 was 132 million, which is their interest. So that just shows you, oh, it's right here, interest expense. This is actual interest for 2024, 141 million. So the forecast for 2025 is lower. They're trying to lower their interest, pay off some debt. But that just shows you how leveraged they are. Here's the last 8 quarters. Volume in Q1 2023, 34 billion. That's transaction volume. And then with 35 billion in the next 3 quarters, it went up in 2024 from 36 billion to 40 billion. So volume went up a good amount from 2023 to 2024. Take rate went down. That's the problem. Actually, it's flat. It's 1.1% in 2023, 1.1% in 2024. I was looking at the fourth quarter and I saw 1.2% to 1%. But for the full year, it's pretty much flat. Merchant Solutions is up. Revenue is up from 1.6 billion to 1.7 billion. Both Merchant Solutions and Digital Wallets is up. Gross profit is up a little bit, 940 million to 990 million. And their profit margin is down, 58.6% to 58%. Here they show the disposed business, direct marketing. The volume last year, 4 billion. This year, 4.4 billion. Revenue was 102 million. Now it's 104 million. The average transactions per user went from 12 to 14. So that's good. Users are transacting more. And average revenue per user is also up. That's up 7% from $25 to $27. They had 7.3 million monthly active users. This is for digital wallets. Here's how they calculate their EBITDA. So this is the full year 2024. The way you calculate EBITDA, you start with your net income, 22 million. So EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So you add back interest expense, 140 million, depreciation, 270 million, stock-based compensation. Because it's not EBITDA, it's adjusted EBITDA. So they add back more. So they actually have 450 million of adjusted EBITDA, even though their net income is only 22 million. And to convert adjusted EBITDA to adjusted net income, you take adjusted EBITDA you minus depreciation and amortization because you're going the other way. You minus interest expense and you get 132 million. Cash is king. You always want to follow the cash. For 2024, 250 million of cash from their operating activities. That's how much cash they generate from running their day-to-day business. So operating cash flow minus capex, and they add the cash paid for interest to get their unlevered free cash flow. Unlevered is not using debt. Levered means using debt. Let's look at a company on Simply Wall Street. Its last price, 16, 939 million market cap, down 19% in the past week, but it is up 31% in the past year. Here's the stock price since they started trading. It looks like it started trading at $117 in October 2020. The reason it started out this high is because they did reverse stock splits. They probably did a 10-for-1 reverse stock split, so it started trading around $12 a share. But when you adjust for stock splits, it looks like it's $117. And it peaked after 3 months in January 2021 at $213. And then it's down about 90% since the peak, from $213 down to $16. And it was lower than 16 at some points. It's hard to tell on this chart. Maybe I'll do the 1 year. It fell to 932 at the bottom. So what is that, like 95% drop from the peak? From 200 down to 10? Because from 200 down to 20, that's 90%. So I guess 95%. But if you're a bottom feeder, you could have made a lot of money, but you had to time it right. You can't hold the stock for too long because you'll lose money in the long run if you hold it. Simply Wall Street does not value the stock. 6 analysts price it at $19. They say it's undervalued. Here's their revenue since 2018. It was 1.1 billion, and now it's 1.7 billion. So revenue has gone up a good amount. It did go up from 2018 to 2019, a pretty good percentage, around 25% or so. But not much of a growth since then. Pretty modest. Here's their debt since 2019. It was $3.5 billion, and it stayed at $3.5 billion till the end of 2020. It did come down to $2.1 billion. Now it's back up to $2.4 billion. And their equity is usually lower than their debt. Their equity currently is $900 million, a lot lower than their debt. And their cash is about 10% of their debt, maybe 9%. So they do have enough cash to pay the interest. In the past year, one insider sell for over 900,000 shares. 39% of the companies owned by institutions, 21% by private companies, 19% by the general public, 18% by venture capital and private equity firms, and 3% by insiders. Their biggest shareholder is Pi Holdings. The second biggest is Blackstone, the largest private equity firm in the world. BlackRock 3%, Geode 0.6%, Goldman 1/3%. And their employee count was 3,200 in 2019. Now it's 3,300. And the ticker trades on the New York Stock Exchange. So if you want a copy of my discounted cash flow model, click on the video in the top right corner.